Okay, so today's question is, or was, Donald Trump Cyrus the Great? So is Donald Trump Cyrus the Great? You know, sometimes we get questions from some of our listeners, some of our subscribers, and I think we're going to be doing that more and more in the future, soliciting your questions so that I can answer them, stay on this topic of the prophecy countdown, and answer them simply and also from the Bible. So if you have questions that you'd like to see covered, send us a note. Let us know what you'd like us to cover here on Prophecy Countdown. So Donald Trump, is he or was he Cyrus the Great? Now, Cyrus the Great is referenced 30 times in the Bible. So that comparison comes up frequently, especially when Donald Trump was the President of the United States. Cyrus the Great was a Persian king who ended the Babylonian captivity. The Babylonians came in, conquered all of Judah, took Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego prisoners, took them back to Babylon. They were there for over 70 years. And Cyrus is referenced prominently in the Bible 30 times. Probably one of the best illustrations I can give you is out of the book of Isaiah. Isaiah, let me see if I can look it up here for you real quick. Isaiah chapter 44, verses 24 through 48 talks about Cyrus. Verse 24 starts off with the Lord speaking through Isaiah. He says, "I am the Lord, the maker of all things, who stretches out the heavens, who spreads out the earth by myself." And then in verse 28, Isaiah has this to say through of course, the Lord speaking through Isaiah, who says of Cyrus, "He is my shepherd, and will accomplish all that I please. He will say of Jerusalem, let it be rebuilt, and of the temple, let its foundations be laid." So in verse 28 of Isaiah, chapter 44, this king of Persia, this future king of Persia, Isaiah names him by name, Cyrus. This was almost 200 years before Cyrus is actually born, 200 years before. And it says, let it be rebuilt, and of the temple let its foundations be laid. So this is before the temple has been torn down. This is before the Jews have been taken captive into Babylon, and Isaiah has this prophecy. This is similar to what Daniel has to say. Daniel chapter 9. This is why it's spoken of with Donald Trump. That is he Cyrus, and we haven't come to answer that question yet. Daniel 9:25 says, "Know therefore and understand that from the time that the word went out to restore and rebuild Jerusalem until the time of an anointed prince, there shall be 7 weeks, and for 62 weeks it shall be built again with streets and moat, but in troubled times." So this Daniel 9 is where we get the idea of the 7 years of tribulation, the 70th week, because Daniel speaks prophetically. Daniel's in Babylon and understands that there's supposed to be 70 years. But then Gabriel says, no, it's not 70 years, it's 70 times 7, or 70 times 7 weeks of years, which is 490 years. And then it breaks it down to 62 and 7. Well, 62 and 7 is 69, leaving 1/7 week left. And this time clock, this stopwatch, to count down to the time of Messiah starts when somebody says, let Jerusalem be rebuilt. And many people think that was Cyrus, and others think it was Artaxerxes, who actually lived a little bit later. The scholars have been trying very difficultly, let's put it this way, with a great amount of difficulty, trying to come up with a timeline that will say, this is when the stopwatch started, and this is when it ended, showing it was fulfilled with Jesus the Christ. Well, we know it was fulfilled with Jesus the Christ, because that's the Messiah. And they try to back into the exact number of years, which would be 483 years. And then some have got to, I've taken a look at what they've come up with, and if you use 360 years and add a few years in there, because of every now and then there would be an extra year, like we have a leap year, they would have a whole leap month, the Jewish people. So if you do the math right, according to some of these scholars, you come up with either the day that Jesus rode into Jerusalem, or that he was crucified. It's only a week difference, so that prophecy was fulfilled. So here's the question: was Donald Trump Cyrus the Great? Well, no, of course not. Cyrus the Great was Cyrus the Great. He was the one that fulfilled the prophecy of Isaiah. He was the one that came in, released the people of Judah from Babylon. He freed the Jews and said, let the temple be rebuilt, or let the foundation be built. So there are a couple things having to do with Donald Trump, though, that has prophetic underpinnings. One of them is that Trump was the first president to make Jerusalem the official capital, officially recognized capital of the Western world. We know that Jerusalem was the eternal capital that God had determined, but Donald Trump made Jerusalem the capital. He moved the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. This is back in 2017. You know, many presidents, going all the way back to Nixon, Jimmy Carter, Barack Obama, George W. Bush, George H.W. Bush. I mean, all of these presidents had basically said, recognized that Jerusalem was the capital, but they never moved the embassy. That was Donald Trump. So that's very prophetic. There's 800 references in the Bible that Jerusalem is the eternal capital of Israel. And Jerusalem is the key. Jerusalem is a huge key to the second coming of Jesus Christ. For example, in Zechariah 14:4, it says, on that day, his feet, now that's Jesus, will stand on the Mount of Olives east of Jerusalem. We also know in reading the book of Revelation, in chapter 11 of Revelation, that there are two prophets that stand on the streets of Jerusalem for 3.5 years, exactly one half of the tribulation. Some speculate that it's going to be the beginning half, some the end. I tend to favor the beginning half of the tribulation. 3.5 years, these two prophets stand on the streets of Jerusalem. Now, the second reason that Donald Trump is often referenced in regards to Bible prophecy, especially by evangelicals and especially by conservative evangelicals, is because of what is known as the Abraham Accords. If you remember, there were some landmark peace agreements that happened during the Donald Trump administration that were called the Abraham Accords. These were multilateral agreements between both Sunni and Shia Muslim nations that aligned them with Jerusalem. It was the very first time this ever happened. And of course, the Bible is all for peace. The Bible says, blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be sons of God. That's one of the Beatitudes that Jesus spoke of. And this was an attempt to bring peace. Now, this agreement was a milestone in Donald Trump's presidency. At the same time, it does not fulfill what some people say was the Antichrist bringing a peace treaty to Jerusalem. Of course not. We don't have the slightest idea who the Antichrist is going to be. All we know is that he hasn't been revealed yet. So it wasn't Donald Trump. Plus, this covenant with many that Daniel 9 tells us is said by most scholars to be the beginning of the tribulation period, a 7-year tribulation period where the Antichrist comes on the scene. We also see that in the first seal that's revealed, with the rider on the white horse. That's also the Antichrist. So there's a couple signs that this Antichrist is the beginning, marks the very beginning of the 7 years of tribulation. Often thought to be also referenced in Daniel 9, where it says that there's a 7-year peace treaty with many. 7 years pointing to the 7 years of the tribulation. You know, when we read the book of Revelation, and this is a great example, when we read the book of Revelation, when you read any prophecy about the second coming, about the end of times, Armageddon, or whatever you want to be looking at, remember that the adage that the Bible interprets the Bible. We don't want to use today's newspapers, current events, even news, political speeches to basically interpret a prophecy. In fact, that's a quote from my book that just came out, which is The Apocalypse and Second Coming. So thank you so much for tuning in today. We hope that we see you again. Be sure to share this video, like it, and subscribe so that you don't miss out on future episodes of the Prophecy Countdown. God bless.
Thank you for joining us on Prophecy Countdown with Pastor Ken Baer. Nearly every day, it's common to see, read, or hear something about the end of the world, the apocalypse, or end times. Author and pastor Kenneth Baer's The Apocalypse and Coming Kingdom zooms in and breaks down biblical prophecy as it relates to Jesus' imminent return and the coming 7-year period, including the Great Tribulation. Available in both paperback and Kindle versions. Get your copy on Amazon or at Barnes & Noble and select Christian bookstores. The title again is The Apocalypse and Coming Kingdom. You can also find it listed by author Kenneth Baer. Get your copy today. Don't leave without first sharing the latest episode with your friends. Be sure to join us again for the latest updates on Prophecy Countdown.